Good evening, YouTube, and welcome back to another edition of Paisano's Music and Vinyl Talk. I am your host, Paisano. Tonight we're going to talk about a British group led by Steve Winwood, who is probably one of the most talented people ever to be in popular music. He could play anything. His voice, I mean, if you listen to him, just soulful. I mean, he could do Ray Charles imitations. He could sound black. He could sound white. He could sound purple. Very, very talented. Play any instrument too. I think probably his number one instrument would be the organ or the piano. Anything with keys. But he was a heck of a guitar player. And sitar play. He could play the sitar. He could do anything. As could his equally talented, especially in the songwriting department, his partner Dave Mason in this band, who went on to have a pretty successful solo career. Dave Mason was a very, very good guitarist and a very good songwriter. They were a four-piece. Jim Capaldi was the drummer. Kind of nondescript, kind of in the background, but he was good enough in that band, I suppose. And Chris Wood was a multi-instrumentalist, like Steve Winwood, except he specialized in horns, the flute, saxophone, play, anything with reeds in it. But this was their first album together, by the name of Mr. Fantasy. It came out in 1968. Steve Winwood had recently left the Spencer Davis Group, where they had some mid-60s success. He was still very young when he did this album. He was only 19 or 20 years old when he was leading this group, Traffic. Very talented from a young age. And he was in the Spencer Davis Group for a few years, and it became obvious that he needed to move on because they were pretty much a British pop group with R&B type tendencies, rock. They had couple of good rock tracks, but Spencer Davis was the leader of that group, and Steve Winwood was infinitely more talented in every aspect than Spencer Davis. And he took off and formed Traffic. Like I said, this is their first album. It was kind of all over the place. Not their best album, but it had a few good tunes on it. You hear jazz, you hear folk, you hear rock on this. And it's kind of all over the place. You never know what you're going to get from track to track. Kind of uneven, kind of raggedly done. They were still trying to find their way, obviously, and they did. They became a pretty good band, and they were pretty successful too. Their later albums after this one got pretty high on the charts. By the time they were finished in 1974, they broke up and got back together several times after 1970. And by the time they finished in 1974, they had some top 10 albums under their belt. They did pretty well. On this album, let's go over the track listing. It's not listed anywhere on the outside. And take a look at the vinyl itself. Starts off with Heaven is in Your Mind, Berkshire Poppies, House for Everyone, No Face, No Name, and No Number. And probably my favorite Traffic tune, Dear Mr. Fantasy, closes out side one. Very good song. Very good song. Side two, you have Dealer, Utterly Simple, Colored Rain, Hope I Never Find Me There, and Giving to You closes out side two. This was on Island Records, Chris Blackwell's label. I have to see if he produced this one. But there's a look at the vinyl, your classic Island label, dark with the palm tree there. Looks very similar to a Bob Marley label, who's also on Island. Like I said, this came out in 1968. It's a mid-80s reissue with trying to recreate the original 60s gatefold sleeve. I'll show you that in a second. If I can squeeze this puppy back in there. Everything's a chore. Everything is hard work. We all know this. There's the original 60s gate sleeve that they recreated. Very psychedelic. I'm assuming that's Mr. Fantasy there. I'm going to have to decide by default that would be Mr. Fantasy, considering I recognize everybody else on that picture. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. I have 2 other Traffic albums that I'll be reviewing in the future, but I wanted to get that one out of the way. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you're enjoying our discussions, please like, and more importantly, subscribe. Until next week, YouTube, goodbye.